Welcome to Hiring Nowadays, a podcast about what makes and breaks successful hiring.
So I began my career in finance at JP Morgan for a number of years. And at the time discovered that I was more passionate about the world of technology than finance. So had the opportunity to go back to school for a little bit and brush up on my skills in machine learning and ultimately study artificial intelligence. From there, I jumped to a small startup at the time that was called GoParrot, that to be their first employee, to work with the two co-founders. And they had just one pilot customer, and I was fortunate to be a part of that team that grew it up to a decent sized business, specifically focused on restaurants. And that business was ultimately acquired by Square, who was one of our channel partners at the time. After my time at GoParrot, I had the chance to join a European company called Flipdish, based out of Dublin. They were looking to launch in North America, so they recruited me to join their team. And after spearheading their launch in the US and Canada, was fortunate to join the global team and help the team get up to be a Series C unicorn software company, once again helping restaurants across the US, Canada, and Europe.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I want to touch upon a little bit of what you said at GoParrot. From being the first employee, sometimes that's always one of the more difficult things to do, considering you just came from finance, now you're making the switch to sales and startups. As the first employee and then scaling that up, what would you say you learned in this experience about building and scaling?
Well, I truly learned everything there. I didn't have any formal sales experience or training prior to that. So truly, learning through doing and by trial and error. I think, I was fortunate to have some strong mentors and, the founder, Yaniv, as well as, throughout the time we brought in some additional help, a gentleman who came in as a bit of a sales mentor and coach to help us take those steps. But I think, our focus was on continuing to really just get better each day and continuing to ask for feedback from our customers, and to continue to learn from others in our networking community around us. And so early days was really around networking with other folks who were at successful tech companies in our industry, learning from their best practices, learning what was working for them, as well as, having conversations with our customers to better understand ultimately what solutions they were looking for, what challenges they were facing, and most importantly, how they preferred to be sold to, was really kind of essential for us to, kind of develop our skill set, and figure out, how as a technology company we were going to be successful in the restaurant industry. So really it's kind of the fundamentals.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think hitting up upon a couple of those points, like networking. I remember when I first met you, we met at a networking event that we were hosting for Restaurant Tech, which is you're out and about. I think you probably met every single person in that room, exchanging emails. You're really on top of the ball there. And then the second piece of that is conversations, like listening to your customer and asking. I think really important is how do they want to be sold, not just selling them and forcing it down on them, really having those conversations and asking them, like, how do you want to be sold? How do you want to interact with this product? So really key points there. And then, so this is where I think I met you early days with Flipdish, and
Right.
this is probably right when it started at Series A. You were instrumental. Well, and I feel that you were instrumental. Maybe you can correct me, but I feel like you were instrumental in getting them to go from A to C to unicorn status. And I'm curious, with you as the lead in the U.S. market, how did you approach the sales and growth of the company?
So, I think for us, it was a different approach with Flipdish versus GoParrot. So GoParrot was very much so a channel sales strategy. So we work specifically with two larger companies in Toast and Square to be a strong partner to them. So what was really important in those relationships was building our channel partnerships and building our relationships with the folks within those companies who would ultimately be driving a lot of business for us. With Flipdish, we were playing in a different ecosystem where we were the platform. And so what was really important for us was going out in establishing the other integrations and the other companies that would work with us to build our ecosystem, so that ultimately we would be really well received in the U.S. market. And so, starting as a company that was based in Europe, we came over, and although we had kind of an end-to-end solution, we didn't really play well in the kind of U.S. tech ecosystem. And so that was sort of step one in terms of establishing ourselves, which was integrating with the right partnerships. So, for example, DoorDash or Uber, or common point of sale systems that were available. So that was kind of our key first step. I think the next thing was really around building our brand. And being a new company that was from Europe, most people hadn't heard from us. And so we knew that we kind of had to play the long game, and that most of our prospective customers probably weren't going to buy from us on first impression, because they really had not heard from us. And so, although it might have been a little bit more challenging to calculate sort of the return on investment of events such as networking events or trade shows, we ultimately had to kind of bet on ourselves, knowing that we needed to go out and be in market from day one, knowing that it probably would take us, a few months or potentially even a few years to really establish ourselves. And a great example of that would be, we were very active from kind of day zero, and we were fortunate that about 1 or 2 years into our journey, we were able to land a deal with Cloud Kitchens, which at the time, and I think still is today, the largest cloud kitchen kind of group in the world. But had we not been kind of out in market, in conferences, out in networking events, et cetera, really carrying the brand and who we were from day one, we probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to be in that conversation. And so I think, when launching a new market, it can always be a bit intimidating and a bit of a challenge. But for us, we needed to approach it that, we were going to be there for the long haul. And we needed to put kind of the time and investment in from the beginning to sort of establish our presence as a serious player, and that we needed to go out and build the right integrations and the right partnerships, so that people would have confidence that we were serious about this market.
Wow. And so a couple things I'm going to reiterate that I heard were really valuable is you did it well right at the end is first step you did was look at the market and say, who are the integration partners that we need to connect to so that people feel that we're a legitimate entity in the United States.
Correct.
That was step one. And then step two was building the brand. And so I want to kind of dig a little deeper with that, because I know as a sales person, marketing and building the brand is very long. And like you said, you're here for the long term. It's like you said, I think your inflection point was 2 to 3 years into it when you got the cloud kitchens. But how did you manage the sales cycle, the executives and everything, and what was their perception of how things were going? I don't know if you were making sales or because as you were focused on building the brand, it's like a huge investment.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sure. So I guess I could speak to that. So I think, we needed to take kind of sort of baby steps to get there, right? So it doesn't all happen overnight. So we needed to be willing to start with, smaller customers who were more willing to sort of take a chance on us. And we needed to work with customers who, had specific needs that we could fulfill that perhaps they couldn't get elsewhere. But really, I think the difference was ultimately like putting in the extra effort. So oftentimes that would mean meeting our customers where they were. So actually like showing up in person. Many of our competitors weren't willing to get out from behind their desks. And, we would put in that extra effort to get on the subway or get in the car, whatever it meant, to actually go out and meet our customers in person because that's what they preferred. It could mean putting in extra effort after they signed up. So, being there kind of around the clock to help them with onboarding, to help them with support. And essentially kind of over servicing our customers was really critical in the early stages, because ultimately what we were fighting for was word of mouth referrals. And we knew that the only way we were going to, ultimately get those referrals is if, we were truly seen as a trusted partner and someone that they would call for advice around their greater ecosystem. And so I think our consistent approach was to go above and beyond the ask. So even beyond what, we are contractually obligated to say that, we're a partner for you. It's not just about this product or offering that we're servicing for you. We want to be, a trusted contact for you and someone that, you can lean on, as someone who can help you with other technology solutions, someone who can guide you or network and connect you, et cetera.
I think it's really important, especially with startups. They're always, that's that's a key component, is going the extra mile. Curious to hear from you. How do you manage the scaling of that, right? Like in early, when you first break in the market, it's really easy to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
say as you have 100, 200,000 customers, were you still like, hey, this is part of our values as a core principles as a company, and no matter what, we're still sticking to this? Or does it start to look differently as you grew?
Sure. So I think ultimately it's always a challenge for businesses as they scale, right? Is how do you maintain that? I think there are a few ways that we were able to maintain this even as we grew in terms of number of customers and employees. I think it started with having like a very clear set of values as a company and like knowing who we were and what our identity was. And by defining those as like a leadership team, we were able to determine what types of people we wanted to hire and ultimately, how those people would treat our customers. And so I think like ultimately it starts at the top in terms of like having the right leadership and having the right values. And then having that cascade down through everything that you do. Fundamentally, the biggest part of it really it comes out in hiring and the folks that we bring on and how we train them and how we treat them. And ultimately then how they treat our customers. It is always a challenge to do this. Everyone always goes through those kind of growth periods where what you did before doesn't scale, right? Maybe I could personally take support calls in the beginning, and obviously I can't do that, when things move further on. But I think what we determined was really important was the ability to kind of internalize kind of what worked really well for individuals and to be able to delegate that and pass that on to new hires. And to build them up as leaders who could then pass that on and delegate that to additional new hires. So I think it was really about being able to internalize company values and then to be able to share those with new hires.
And so I really like what you said there. It really came down to the hires and do they share the values? So as the person did you take the company's values core systems or did you implement your own? And with that, I'm curious when it comes to running and leading a sales team, what are the core principles and values that you hold to any organization you're with? And then how do you instill that with the people that you're going to hire and are looking to hire?
Sure. So for the Flipdish example, it was really, it was led by the two brothers that founded the company. But, they sought input from, the team in its entirety, which is actually usually quite rare. But, they were values that they were constantly looking to refine and take additional feedback from the team. But when I think about, values for a sales team, there's lots of different sales methodologies and sales approaches and things like that out there. But for me, it boils down to relatively kind of simple principles of, I believe that, for my teams, what's most important is having genuine curiosity. So genuinely wanting to understand our customers or our prospects, and genuinely being there for them, active listening. So actually being there present, listening to their feedback, listening to what they have to say, and ultimately being focused on solving the problem first, pitching and or implementing a solution second. And the reason why I think that's really important is that ultimately, your customers and your prospects want to be heard. They have challenges. That's why they're willing to take the meeting. And what's most important is finding out whether or not you can actually solve that problem and focusing on that task at hand at first. And, what we found with our teams is that when we do that, we have a much higher chance of actually implementing a solution that's going to stay for the long haul because we're actually focused on the real problem at hand versus just trying to, get a solution in and move on to the next one. So if I had to say that back, I think it's, having genuine curiosity. I think if you are not genuinely interested in learning about your prospects' days and what they're working on, then perhaps you're in the wrong industry. And I would encourage you to go find an industry where you are genuinely passionate and excited to be there. I'd say active listening. So really, being able to put your phone down, like have your notepad open, whatever it may be, but being able to truly listen and focus on really solving the problem at hand. And that, being able to be there and being a trusted advisor, someone that can help your clients with, the problem that they're kind of bringing to you, will lead you to the promised land ultimately.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to segue this to your, because we spoke about when we talked about core values, and it was like, from the Flip Dish example, it was led by the two brothers. But now that you have your own company, which congrats there, I think you've been doing it for 2 years now, right?
About 6 months.
6 months. Oh, okay. Wow. So even even more new. So fresh in this system. It's an exciting time. What first? Let's hear the story of like why you decided to make the jump from working at a company, even as a first employee, to now doing your own thing. Like, where was that? What was that light bulb switch that this problem exists and I have to solve it?
So I'll tell you what, big picture, I think this is something I've been working towards probably for about 8 to 9 years. I had always been kind of tinkering on the side with business ideas and things I wanted to achieve. I think ultimately what I realized is I needed to go gain experience working with and under others who could teach me and upskill me, which is incredibly important. And I had felt after my kind of very formative experiences, both, the beginning of my career, then my time spent at GoParrot, my time at Flipdish, that, I had achieved a lot of the learnings that I was hoping to. And at this point felt comfortable that it was time to, team up with another business partner and go out and build something of our own. So in one aspect, it was fulfilling kind of an ambition and sort of a dream I've been working towards for some time. But the why this particular opportunity or problem that we're solving for, I think in my entire career as like either in sales or as a sales leader, the biggest challenge that was always presented was the like lack of like pipeline. It was never, we're not able to, the product's not working or not enough deals or whatever. Maybe it was ultimately, the lack of top of funnel. So the lack of number of meetings per day that were happening. And usually consistently across the board, after you hire people and you onboard them and you train them, you have pretty consistent close rates from when the meetings happen to actually sign and paid. But what was always like lumpy and always a challenge, which was how can you consistently generate pipeline that is qualified and that ultimately has a strong opportunity to convert to close one. And I think that's kind of the case, across the board. Many software companies struggle with that challenge. I teamed up with my co-founder, and we, both kind of agreed that this was a challenge that many different software companies were facing, and that we truly believe that some of the recent advents of language models could be applied to solving for this problem. And so we truly believe that with, kind of more recent advances in AI, and particularly with some really fascinating use cases of generative AI, we could solve for this problem, which is how can we ultimately help businesses identify more of their high intent qualified pipeline, and how can we do so in an automated fashion, so that you can ultimately kind of do more with less resources. So that was like the big picture problem. What we've ultimately built at Penguin is a software tool that can identify the exact people and the exact companies on your website. And while perhaps similar things might have been done in the past, the challenge was what can you actually do with all that data? And where language models and where AI plays in really nicely is you can use AI to analyze all of that information and determine which companies or which people are relevant or not qualified. And you can also use AI to automatically filter and route them to relevant people, relevant outbound sequences, relevant ad campaigns, et cetera. And so, it was the combination of two technologies. One, this new technology that we've developed that have allowed us to identify the exact people visiting your B2B website. And two, the ability to leverage AI to filter through these large sums of data and actually find the relevant folks and businesses that are suitable. And that's kind of the combination of those two technologies, allowed for Penguin to become a company that ultimately helps people book more meetings with high intent prospects.
Yeah, And what, like after listening to this, I really see that when you look at how sales and AI are combining, you're revolutionizing the way that sales is going to, or companies can find their prospects. Because, yeah, you can get that, you can see that people are coming to your site, you can potentially even see who, but how do you manage that? Maybe like, what I'm understanding is they don't even have to download a piece of content. They'll just know if someone comes to your site, you'll know who that person is. It's almost like if you have that LinkedIn button on LinkedIn and you see who sees you.
Yep.
But rather than just seeing that, you're saying, okay, actually, and you probably have to have some sales content. You're actually feeding it. Okay, this workflow is probably best for them, and maybe tailor it this way. And you're able to customize a workflow based on the type of people that are coming to the site.
Yep.
And so that's really changing how maybe even people build their sites in the sense because you want to actually build better sites that attract the right people and have better SEO so that you can actually create a better pipeline and you
Mhm.
actually have better data on who that is going to be.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I mean, a really
incredible.
tangible example would be, we know if you're a fintech company and within that fintech company, perhaps we know you're the VP of sales and, your exact contact information. So we can automatically, follow up with relevant case studies from other VPs of sales who work in fintech. Or in your instance, if you're, a founder and you're growing your startup and you're looking for developers, when you land on your site, we can, show you that exact persona so that when you reach out to them, you can send them, relevant information about other founders who've come to you and help find, back-end developers to help them, grow. So, yeah, it's really, really about, helping people move faster and be proactive instead of kind of being reactive. And, the statistic I'll share with you is, across B2B, it's typically like maybe at best 1% of all visitors will, book the demo or submit their information. And so what we do is we help you see the 99% of other folks that haven't submitted any information so you can proactively reach out to them and bring them into your funnel.
Incredible. And that's just really, I think that's going to be really valuable. And do you see in the sales AI world, what are you seeing and how do you think sales will be changed? How much do you think sales will change because of AI?
Yeah. So I think what will change is a lot of the administrative tasks. So a lot of the, data creation, data uploading, a lot of the note taking, those types of tasks, a lot of the calendar scheduling, a lot of the back and forth. Um, a lot of the administrative work will be able to be automated and go away. What's not going to change in the immediate future is the meeting, the active listening, the curiosity, playing back the problems that you're hearing, being present, and actually helping to solve the problem. Those kind of critical challenges aren't going to go away. And so, what we see is that, AI isn't necessarily going to replace sellers. It's going to empower them to be more efficient. And so, we ultimately believe that a lot of that busy work that sellers would do in terms of finding which prospects, figuring out, how to reach out to them, what their messaging should look like, how to update their CRM, how to send a follow-up email, all of that information can be, enhanced and improved and done much more efficiently with AI. But,
Mhm.
me showing up to the meeting, being present, being able to help you work through kind of a nuanced problem you have, figuring out what the right solution for you might be. We don't see that going away in the near future. And so if anything, we see, the ability for smaller teams to be capable of much more. And we see the ability for, I think there's going to be a lot more companies that get to, greater heights of success without having to go out and hire a lot more folks who historically might be doing a lot of kind of the administrative tasks. So that's kind of what we're seeing
Mhm.
for the future right now.
Yeah, I can attest to that. When I'm on my sales calls, for me, it's a lot about being personable and connecting with someone and not how well can I input their data into a CRM or how much I can, um, like, how well I can find the people. A lot of that stuff, it's almost, I just input some data and I can find that. It's not, there's no human element there. So for sales, it's still going to maintain that human element. Sales is really about being human. Uh, the admin tasks that you mentioned, I think those are probably the part of sales that most salespeople dislike the most anyway. I even remember after my sales call today, I had these notes, and then I go, okay, now let me go through the CRM, put that in, put my notes down, and I feel that in the future, that's going to be a lot more, like a lot more automated. Because
Yeah.
when I'm talking to the person, we're connecting. I'm talking about family related stuff. We're connecting,
Mhm.
and that relationship. Uh, I can't see it going away in the near future. Maybe something in the far out future, Blade Runner style, it changes things. But as of now, we're not there yet. So I do want to talk a little bit about you as a sales leader and how you. So your early days with the company, is it just you leading the sales team, or have you started bringing on others yet?
Yeah, so we have a small team today. There are two of us that are actively kind of involved in like our commercial activities, but it's a very different type of product in that there's not a lengthy sales cycle.
Hmm.
We're very fortunate, and this is kind of the first time in my career where we have a product that is very simple in its value proposition in explaining what it does. Although the technology behind it is quite complex, the value proposition of saying we will show you the exact people on your website and provide you with their contact information is relatively crystal clear, which is an amazing
Hmm.
thing. So our challenges now are a little bit different than like a traditional kind of enterprise sales cycle, where it can take several months and you need to work many different decision makers and you need champions, et cetera. Our focus right now is really on growing our awareness and really on building our brand. And so kind of those things that I mentioned earlier and how important those were for the long haul in a software company, that's kind of what we're really overemphasizing right now, which is who we are, what our brand is, what we stand for. And it's also an opportunity for us to even showcase what our values are and what we believe in, et cetera. And we're fortunate that it's when people do connect with us, if it is a problem or that they're looking to solve for, it's a relatively simple kind of process because explaining what we do is pretty straightforward. So slightly different than things I've done in the past, but really really exciting to be able to sell and provide a product where the value proposition is very, very clear to the prospective buyer.
Amazing. And so, talking about again, one of your key, I guess, the key success factors for you is building brand. What is your process that you go about? Like, what are the
Building a brand doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't need to be perfect from the get go. I think what we've realized that it's more important for us to be out and sharing our story, and less worried about how perfect the edit is or how cleanly designed the content may be. For us right now, our focus is on is how frequently can we connect with our prospective customers, and how can we do so in a way that resonates with their challenges. And so when we think about building a brand, it's really about how can we refine, well, one, identify kind of like who our ideal customer is, what they look like, what does the company look like, who do the buyers look like within that company, intimately understanding what their challenges and problems are as a company. And then being focused on is how can we refine and distill down messaging that our ideal buyer will understand in all of 10 seconds when they land on the website. And so being able to crystallize that messaging down into a very kind of refined tiny little component is really kind of key for us in order to kind of build our brand, because we need to kind of have repeatability in our messaging and make sure that the additional impressions that we reach, that we're really kind of refining that message over and over. Yep. So I think um, when we think about building the team, I think it's really there's a couple of different factors that we think about, but ultimately, we look for people that like share the values that we have, and that share and are excited about the kind of mission that we're working on. Because I think like what is one of the most like important characteristics is genuine passion and kind of ambition for what we were working on, particularly in like a startup environment. So that's really what's important to me. I also look for people that are very much so like self-starters. And so people that take initiative on their own, someone that would show up to a meeting with some potential prospects that they're already thinking of, someone who would show up to the meeting with questions about how the product works or maybe some ways that the product could be better. I think people that want to contribute across the board and want to bring their ideas and want to, be a part of building something is really important. But I think, fundamentally, we look for people that want to be builders and, want to be or truly passionate, every day and really bring the kind of energy and motivation to the team. Well, I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of things really that scare me about it. But perhaps one and the same would be that, you're really in control of your own destiny. And that, you're ultimately accountable and responsible for, the success and failures. And that, when doing so, just like when leading a team, that ultimately, you are responsible for those that are part of your team, for your customers, and for kind of your entire sort of ecosystem. And so you take on that additional burden and responsibility of others, guiding them to and leading them to success, whether it's your team or your customers. So I think that can be daunting, but certainly don't find it scary. But definitely something that's kind of an exciting part of the journey. Sure. So it's penguinai.app is our website. You can find us on LinkedIn, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well at John DiLoreto. But thanks for having me, Calvin. It was great to catch up and wish you all the best. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in and spending a part of your day with us. We appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Have questions? Head over to awana.io and ask away.